I'm going to turn this over for Sandra and look forward to seeing you all at the end for a lively discussion. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you for the introduction, Samantha, and also for the invitation to present at this Lunchtime series about the ongoing work at the Getty on the Getty Provenance Index. May marked the first release of the Getty Provenance Index as linked data, as you mentioned, in a new platform called Arches. And today I would like to give you a quick introduction to this remodeled GPI in this new interface. But briefly, a little bit of history. For decades, the Getty Provenance Index has been making available to researchers information from source documents like inventories, sales catalogs, and dealer stock books that describe ownership or transfers of ownership of art since roughly the 16th century, with a strong focus on European and American paintings. The GPI first appeared in 1974 with two book projects, a census of Italian paintings in American public collections and an index to paintings sold in the British Isles during the 19th century. It was in the early 80s that the department started to computerize its indices, and in 1996, the Getty Provenance Index was first published online as a searchable database. It has grown over the decades throughout its history, thanks to a long and rich tradition of collaborations with outside scholars and institutions. And only more recently, projects have started focusing also on material that we have here at the Getty Research Institute, extensive archives related to the art dealers, collectors, and the art trade. This graph is the spread of the number of entries in the Provenance Index by source document, archival inventory, sales catalog, and dealer stock books, and by decade. This spread is the result of the many projects over the years which tackle different time periods and geographies. The sales catalogs and dealer stock books data have been transformed and are available via the Arches interface that I will showcase today. Archival inventories will be migrated next. We hope to complete that next year. And all the data sets are also accessible via the classic or legacy interface that many of you here might know. So grouped here by each 50-year period and country, our sales catalogs data comes from auction houses and dealers documenting works of art offered for sale in Europe from 1950 to 1945 at both public auctions and private sales. The dataset includes records primarily from Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Great Britain, the Netherlands, Sweden. These data provide detailed insights into the sale of primarily paintings, sculptures, and drawings. Records include details from handwritten annotations and external sources, such as buyer names and prices, enabling researchers to examine patterns of art acquisition and the evolution of the art markets. Many sales catalog resources include links to digital copies of catalogs hosted elsewhere, and photocopies of most pre-20th century catalogs are available at the Getty Library. As for the stockbook dataset, it comprises transactional records from prominent galleries and art dealers, the Parisian dealer Goupil and Company and their successors Busot, Valadon and Company, covering sales in Paris between 1846 and 1919, and the dealer Michael Knoedler and Company covering sales in New York between 1872 and 1970. These dealer stockbooks are detailed records documenting acquisition, sales, and pricing of artworks. So let me also talk a little bit about this remodel, why we remodeled in the first place. First, our user base has been growing over the decades, ranging from provenance researchers working on individual objects or the work of particular artists, to art historians working on entire collections or collectors, and scholars working on topics related to art circulation and the development of the art markets. Groups that increasingly include users who require computational strategies for their research in any of these topics. Second, I mentioned that the GPI was developed in the 1980s, and their underlying technology hasn't changed much since then. So in order to ensure the longevity of the GPI, a new infrastructure and a significant data structure overhaul was required to bring the index into the current digital ecosystem at Getty. This also gave us the opportunity to enrich the GPI with explicit and fully documented semantic data models, and also relied on shared terminology, such as the Getty vocabularies, which include the Union List of Artist Names, or ULAN, the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, or AAT, and the Geographic Names, or TGN. All of this allows us to form explicit connections between our data that have always existed, but obscured either by the way they were presented or because they had never been captured computationally or systematically. And finally, we have adopted the open source and Getty supported Arches platform, so we are now able to work collaboratively with a community of digital humanists and technologists, allowing us to adapt to the needs of our community and the field on an ongoing basis. I want to share this link to the Getty Provenance YouTube playlist, where we have made available short tutorial videos based on the introductory sessions that we held with users over the summer. These are 4 videos, and we look forward to sharing more content in the coming months, based on more in-depth topics or covering the platform functionalities in more detail. We look forward to your feedback on what may be of interest. This is the new homepage, and the URL is at the top right. I will briefly point out some of its features. Here you have quick links to our user guide, which we constantly update, and frequently asked questions section. These are links to 2 forms, one to express interest in training sessions or suggest topics for videos or future sessions, and the form to submit feedback on errors, bugs, or anything you might find in the data or questions while navigating the new interface. And finally, here is a link to the legacy database. Both the legacy and new platforms will run in parallel until we can fully transition to the new interface in Arches. This will not happen until archival inventories is remodeled and added to Arches, and until we complete further developments of features such as the enhanced research, navigation, and presentation of results. We will communicate next steps and future plans in advance to all of our users. So I would like to begin by introducing the main changes to how the data is organized in the new GPI. And I will use this painting by Johannes Vermeer at the Frick to describe this new structure. The provenance of this information, or collection history, cited in the museum's collection page online, states that Mr. Frick purchased the painting in 1901 from Knoedler and Company, who had purchased the painting from the London dealers Lorry and Company. The dealership Knoedler & Co. recorded these transactions in their stock book. This one is held at the GRI and is transcribed into the GPI records, book 4, page 49, row 50, which shows, and I here highlight in red, might be a little difficult to read, on the left side, their purchase from Lorry & Co. on September 4th, 1901, the painting by Vermeer, entitled in this book's Music Lesson, for £2,500, and in pencil, which is really, really difficult to read in the original, from the collection of Lewis Fry, Esquire, MP. And on the right side, they recorded the sale of the painting on September 18, 1901, to H.C. Frick, living in Pittsburgh, for $26,000. The main change in the new data structure is that it is organized around an event-based framework. That is, it's organized around things that happen at a specific time and place involving people, objects, or ideas. So let's look first at this conceptually. Here we have an artist, and here we have a work of art. The relationship between the two is that of creation. The artist created the artwork. Now we have a sales event, for example, a private sale. We add the relationship between the artwork and the event of the sale in that the artwork is involved in the sale. Next, our sale has some other actors linked to it. For example, the earlier owner of this artwork participating in the sale as seller, the person or group ceding ownership and receiving payment, And then we have the subsequent owner of this artwork who is participating in this event of sale as buyer, or the person or group receiving ownership and making the payment. Now, all of this comes to us from the transcription of the original source document, in our example, the dealer stockbook. And the relationship is that of documentation. As you can see, the existence of the event is what brings all these points together, and it defines the relationship to the event, to the object, and to each other. This graph emphasizes the way data types connect to each other. So let's now look at our Vermeer example. We have our object, the painting by Vermeer, and Vermeer as its creator. The painting is involved in two events, which we call provenance activities. First, Knoedler's purchase of the painting from Lorry & Company for £2,500, documented on the left side of the stockbook page, and Mr. Frick's purchase of the painting for $26,000, documented on the right side of the stockbook page. Organized this way, you can see that the data is very expressive and explicit in what it is in the source document, and grounded in the connections we can establish across what we call resources. In a transcription-based database, each entry represents a textual work, which we traditionally call a record. But once we instantiate the objects, people, groups, activities, and identify them in this new database form, we can't talk of just records, but instead we need to refer to resources, which are all the things described or referred to in those records. Now let's go in the database. This is the new main page. It's the search page. Once you go, and let me point well from left to right. At the top left, you find the home button that will take you back to the landing page. And next to it, we have the search bar where you can make simple searches by entering keywords. The results of the search will appear below in the form of cards. On the right side of the screen is the search bar for navigating the advanced search facets per resource type. You can see the resource there and click the arrow beside each one to see the field options available for advanced search. And in the upper right corner, you will find a series of buttons. The bell button is for notifications that are only triggered by large exports and will not be used for any other kind of notification. The question mark is for the help page, where you can find links to a variety of support materials and documentation about the contents and the platform. And next you see a button with a circle and an arrow. This is the logging feature and is only available for Provenance Index staff to sign in for editorial purposes. Users don't need to set up profiles. You can just ignore this button. In the row below, we have a bookmark symbol for saved searches, which opens a menu of pre-filled advanced searches that users can use or adapt to their own needs. We highly recommend this as a starting point, and I will showcase a couple of examples in the next few slides. We also have a calendar button, which opens a time filter. This is a good way to browse data based on dates by clicking through the wheel itself or entering some parameters. I will also showcase this function. And finally, we have the export button. This opens a menu to download your search results. Exports of 400 results or less will download automatically, and over 400 resources will be sent via email. For anyone interested, the tutorial videos, part 2 in particular, goes over these functions in more detail. So let's begin our exploration. And for this, I have chosen this painting, At the Frick, Wisdom and Strength, by the 16th century Italian painter Paolo Veronese. I've chosen it for its provenance. This painting has a well-documented history and appears in all 3 main datasets of the Provenance Index. From most recent to older sources, first, it's represented in our dealer stockbook data. The painting was purchased by Mr. Frick from the Knoedler dealers in April of 1912. Knoedler had purchased a share of the painting from the London dealer Colnaghi in June of 1910. Going back in time, the second source represented in the GPI comes from the catalog for a private contract sale that of the Orleans Italian pictures from December 1798. The sale of the painting collections of the Duke of Orleans took place over a period of time and was one of the most important events in the history of collecting and was a major cultural phenomenon at the time. We know from an annotation in one of the surviving copies of the catalog that the painting was purchased by Thomas Hope for 500 guineas. And finally, even earlier, the third source is represented in our archival inventories dataset. The painting appears on the inventory of the collection of the Duke of Orleans drawn in Paris in 1727. Once the archival inventories dataset is added to the new GPI in Arches, all three events will be linked to the Veronese painting. Currently, only the first two I mentioned are connected. Here we have the search interface, and I'm showcasing how you can enter some keywords in the search box, typing Veronese, wisdom, and strength, those three terms, to see if that three-word combination is found in any resource across the database. In this case, we only get 2 results, but if the list were longer, it would be worth just filtering to the type of resource we are interested in, a physical object in this case. And when clicking on the name, the report for the painting opens in a new tab. The default view is for the Data tab, where we find information about this painting. This is organized according to those jump links, which serve as top-level categories. We can see here the titles given to the work in different sources. We can also see, the dimensions listed in the sources and the artist name mentioned also by sources, where we could see contradictions in attributions, for example, where the work is currently located if we have that information, and also different kinds of identifying numbers such as lot numbers assigned in catalogs, or stock numbers assigned by galleries, and accession numbers assigned by museums. The details of this information are displayed as we expand these rows. This way of structuring the data allows us to consistently encode what information comes from which source. As in this case, the 3 different sources for these 3 types of identifying numbers. And at the bottom of the report page, we see all the references that help us to keep track of where this information is coming from. But what if we're interested in seeing the connection this painting has with other things in the database? For that, we go into the Related Resources tab. And I can see at the top the provenance activities where this painting was bought and sold. Expanding that list, I can also sort it. And at the top, I see those events leading to the painting's previous owners and current owner. And then the private sale of the painting in 1798. Hopping over to that report, we have information and the name of the seller, the Duke of Orleans, and the buyer, Thomas Hope. And we can also see that the sale of the painting was mediated by the London picture dealer, Michael Bryan. From here, I can decide to look for a digital version of the catalog, clicking on the textual work, and that is the entry in the catalog. But what we need is the entire catalog available digitally via several libraries. For example, this copy held at the Metropolitan Museum that we can access via the Getty Research portal. I can go back to the related provenance activities for the painting, similarly looking at the information about the sale of the painting to Frick. And I can see that Knoedler, alongside 3 other dealers, had invested in the painting and sold it to Mr. Frick. If we want to look at the entry in the stockbook, I can also click on the textual work, the source reference, and that is the row in the stockbook. But to see the digitized page, I hop onto the resource for the page, where I can find links to the images of the stockbook hosted at the GRI Digital Collections. I also would like to show how we can continue exploring. For example, I may wonder how many other works currently at the Frick collection have been identified in the GPI. I'm making a small detour to show that when you open a resource in a new tab, the URL for each resource is unique, stable, and reproducible. Moreover, this last string of digits in the URL are called the Universal Unique Identifier, also called UUID, which is permanent and unique to each resource. You can always locate anything in the database by this UUID. I will select a search that looks for works from the Save Search menu, for works in a specific museum with a specific accession number. This is pre-filled with a given example, but in our case, I'm not interested in a specific work, so I can remove the accession number fields and change the search parameter for the current owner to the Frick collection. I can type the name or use this UUID for the Frick collection, which gives me very precise results on the left. A great feature to point out is that searches are dynamic and also generate unique URLs. If saved, copied, and pasted in a new tab or window, the exact search will be reproduced, loading the parameters and displaying the same search results. This is a great way to save searches that you find useful, especially when not part of the Save Search menu. The core functionalities of Arches include a graphical way to represent resources and the relationship. Resources here are represented by nodes following a color-coded depending on the type. The graph is dynamic and can be expanded to include any number of connections. Part 4 of the tutorial videos covers the related resource graph in more detail, and we're eager to work with users on potential developments to this functionality. One last further exploration, for example, what else did Frick purchase from Nodler that is recorded in the GPI database? For that, I will also use an existing saved search. I will select one that is made to call for any provenance activities that involve a specific person or group as either ceding ownership, receiving ownership, ceding custody, or receiving of custody of an object. I'm looking for all those cases where Nodler will be ceding ownership to Frick, so I only need the parts about the transfer of ownership and can add Nodler and Frick to the respective fields. I'm keeping the safe search example, so I want both conditions to be true at the same time, Nodler ceding ownership and Frick receiving ownership, and Frick receiving ownership. I could have combined them in the top level condition as well. And let's say I want to compare how many transactions between them took place before and after the Frick families moved from Pittsburgh to New York in 1905. I can add the time filter and compare the results that took place up to 1905 or from 1905. In this last group, I see that there was a sale in 1916. And in order to see the details, let's click on this provenance activity. It involves a painting in its provenance history called Andrew the Cell. This painting, we'll see, it's a portrait by British painter Henry Raeburn, and I can see that Frick paid $18,000 for it. In the resource report for the painting, looking at the related events in which this painting was involved, it is interesting, again, expanding the list and sorting by date, it is interesting to see that there are many purchases and sale by Nodler. It is the 1916 sale, the sale to Frick, and subsequently the painting had two other owners. Using the export option, I exported the search results of the purchases by Frick as a table in the form of a spreadsheet and was able to plot the number of purchases per year. This graph shows that Frick's purchases from Nodler were more numerous in the initial years of his collecting activity, and since our data includes the prices paid, we can see in this new graph that the total monetary value of Frick's purchases in those initial years came nowhere near the amounts he destined for artworks as his collecting began to focus on increasingly more valuable works. Now I would like to share a few points about what is next in store. Arches is under constant community-driven development, and we will have more functionalities coming soon. As part of the GPI roadmap, we're working towards the presentation of search results in a more consolidated format and on alternative ways to extract data and present it as a user-friendly way. Currently, Sparkle, which is the querying language for the new data structure, is a very powerful tool that produces stable views of the data in a consolidated manner and is extremely customizable. You can access via the linked Open Data Gateway, circled in red, and we are working on making these easy and intuitive to use in order to lay the groundwork for bringing this functionality to the remodeled interface. There will be new developments of these fronts, and we will be working with our users on these improvements. Another aspect we are exploring is the cross-repository linking potential of the new dataset of the in Arches and beyond. For that, we're exploring how to leverage the union list of artist names, Wikidata, museum collections, and the new GPI, and exploring how we can bring this information together. These are explorations that also will inform interesting research projects, and we are also looking forward to working with users on these potentials. More of what's next. We have more safe searches, but we want to hear from you, our users. What kinds of searches do you need, and what do you want to see in the ServSage menu? We populate those with feedback directly from our community, so please let us know if you would like to see something in particular for your own research. Next, we're developing a map feature to plot all of the location information we have in our data on an interactive map. As mentioned, we also have archival inventories joining the sales catalogs and stock books in the remodeled platform. We're eager to see what connections can be made explicitly between these data sets. We will have new data coming. We have auction data from American sales catalogs for the period between 1880 and 1930, and to add to the remodeled index in the future. And finally, as mentioned, we're continuously working with developers to update and have plans for updates to the interface experience for the next couple of years. We sincerely want to hear all of your suggestions and comments about how we can make the Provenance Index work for you. I thank you all for your attention, and we love to hear from you, so please contact us with any questions or feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sandra. That was so much fun, and I can't wait to dig in. I'm going to kick off the questions real quick, and I had I guess, a selfish question. And that is that you mentioned that you could save links. Could those links be used, those search links be used in a publication? Would they be persistent links that if I was doing a publication on Frick and I could put it, in the citation, it would show that again? Like be persistently linked?
That is a very good, that's a very good question. I think one of the things we did want to enable in the new GPI is the ability to search individual resources. That's the main function of these, what we call these UUIDs. And the entire URLs for save searches, at this moment, they are permanent. In the future, if there are any changes to any of the components of the URL, we hope to make sure that these will be they will lead to the if there are any updates whatsoever. But they are in fact can be used to search numbers of records, and very helpful to go back to some investigation or to a set of results that users are interested in.
Absolutely, that's exciting. And just to let you guys all know, Sandra and I are experimenting a little bit with the Frick data to see if we can link it to the Provenance Index as well. So that would help connect our resources. Okay, I will stop being selfish and I will look at the Q&A. I have an anonymous attendee who they wanted to ask if the GPI links will be updated in ASCO ASCO. They noticed that now with the remodel, there have been some 404 errors with the direct links are safe. Thanks.
Is this the links to ASCO have been carried over, so they should be there shouldn't be any issues accessing. Although ASCO is behind a paywall, I don't know if that might be a problem. Sometimes if you're not logged into a library or an account, that might be the case. But we've carried over all the links to ASCO, to the Heidelberg libraries for the German sales, and to any other catalog, particularly that we have been able to link through the Getty Research portal or sometimes outside links. This is an ongoing process. We constantly add new links as new copies of catalogs are added. So we're working on a workflow to help us constantly update those links. But if you can contact us via the provenance index at getty.edu for any questions about that 404, because I'm surprised to hear that they did not open.
Work. So let them know at the Getty Provenance Index so they can work out the kinks
Yes,
too.
please
I have a question
hear from everyone about everything.
I have these things take time. I have a question from Susan Jacques. She said, is it possible to search for a painting that was sold in the 17th century if you know the names of the buyer and seller?
Yeah, at the moment, we are working to enable more cross searches that leverage information that, as you can see, is now located in it's about different resources. So to answer your question, at the moment, we can, via the Arches interface, we can search for transactions involving a buyer and seller on a particular date, but we do need to go into each one in order to see the information about the painting, particularly about its description or titles and so on. That question that kind of brings together information about the artwork, the event at the time period, and it's more information, for example, about the painting itself or about the creator of the work. They need to be queried via Sparkle. So that's why we're taking a two-pronged approach right now to see what we can do to facilitate those kinds of questions and present them. We're thinking through how to make it easier to currently make those queries as we work on the interface itself to be able to produce those in a more consolidated and direct way. So there will be a little bit of time in order before we can actually reproduce that same question in the Arches interface. But the pieces are there. We're working on the interface options in order to do so, and we'll definitely work with users on some more testing and definitely communicate once we've made some progress on that front.
Yeah, it's super exciting. So I have another anonymous attendee who says, how do you go about applying subject tags and keywords to each artwork? At our gallery, we apply them individually, but we are exploring the use of AI to add more general terminology to each piece.
Oh, that is a great question. I think it's a great moment to explore, in fact, how we can leverage these technologies. And our way of model or expressing the data about these resources, I think allows us also to be very specific about where this information comes from. So it's also very exciting that we can explore more computationally driven tags, perhaps, or some leveraging of existing vocabularies and concordances in different kinds of terminologies and tag them as such. I think we have yet to explore that, and I think it's a great definitely something that we now have the infrastructure to do so.
Yeah, I'm super excited to play with the maps and the data. That was really fun. Thank you. Amy Brown Price she says, many thanks. She says, what about coded and not priced in catalogs? Usually sales catalogs helps follow taste and fashion in a given works.
You mean,
I
I'm
guess
sorry.
the stuff, maybe the annotated information,
Hmm.
annotated,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. So currently, the informations, many projects have extracted the text printed in catalogs, and information such as prices or buyer names, which have been traditionally handwritten, coming from handwritten annotations in some copies, have been transcribed into the database. I think going forward, we, in this new platform and how the data is structured, we have the ability to point to that specific copy of the catalog from which the information about these annotations come from, and that's something, an enrichment for the future. But it's yeah, it's traditional information that the provenance index has been capturing over the years. The dealer stockbooks do have sometimes amounts written in codes. I don't know if that's the part of the question as well. So we try to always capture the information as it's written in the source document, and also maybe translate it to an actual price and also expressed as a number so that we can do some computations or specific searches that are based on price ranges or dimension ranges and so on. These are new functionalities that are becoming more and more available when compared to the previous database design and structure. I hope that answers at least partly some of the
I don't
questions.
know, maybe we could circle back in the Q&A if we didn't get it. I have another anonymous attendee who was just asking about the American auction data, when that might be added,
That
if you have a guess.
it will be a real guess out there. We still first need to bring the archival inventories data, but I hope that it's something we can start working on next calendar year, maybe start working on later next calendar year, on the later part. I think there are many connections to existing stockbook data that for that period. So we do have, there's going to be a lot of connections, I think, to establish. We're working on the the internal workflows for data, bringing data production, data management. That's also part of the work taking place. So I hope there will be new developments on that front as well. We'll make sure to inform our community what's coming, and once we have a more specific ideas of timeline as well.
Yeah, maybe we can have you back when another date, something else. Oh, I see Amy has responded. She said, many thanks for the excellent response to the question about the coded prices. Glad this information will be included. So that was, I guess we hit it on the nail, which is good. Tatiana Knight says currently the GPI, the remodel GPI, I think she's referring to, does not include sales and catalog data from the US from 1880 to 1930. Is that correct? And if so, does the old GPI have that?
Oh, the sales catalogs data for the US for that period is a future project, future data to be added to the provenance index. A few years back, we started collecting some of that, so setting the basis for a project to ingest that and to bring that into the provenance index, but it's not available yet. I think that's what would probably be available certainly after we bring the archival inventories data, as I mentioned. So it's not there yet. What we do have is, for that period, we have, of course, sales data for the US based on the dealer Nodler, but that's not auction sales.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I have Gail Feigenbaum. Hello, Gail. She says, thank you for your very clear and illuminating presentation. She's wondered what you see as a potential affordance of AI and the GPI. The possibilities for research are immense in the new architecture, but complexity and learning curve of the interface for users seem high.
Yes, thank you, Gail. Yes, it is a very complex system. It for us it was also represents a learning curve. I think what we what we s- what we saw the need to do is to put the new data out and have this new data structure and have the opportunity to explore what are some of these affordances and which direction, how we want to customize the interface going forward. It is very flexible. There are many ways to arrive at some of the same search results. There's no necessarily one way as the right way. But so we're in this moment in time where now that we have this new data structure, we can place more attention to place our attention into how to develop new functionalities. As I mentioned, the way of presenting search results, all based working together with our community of users. So I see exciting developments on this front, and also those that leverage these linking aspects of it and being able to connect the GPI data to other sources, other repositories, better integrate them with our Getty holdings as well, additionally. And in terms of the AI applications, I think they're also enormous. They, I think, touch the whole data cycle. So there are many great advances lately in order to extract data from sources now, being able to have more effective ways and precise ways to parse that, to structure it. And now that we have a very documented and clear structure, I think that process, it's great potentials for that process itself. And also, I also think that it's worth exploring how AI can sometimes help translate this very complex structure and incorporate it, I hope, some in the user interface so the users can engage in a more using natural language, for example, in order to query this data. Because the data now it's so clearly expressed, I think it can ease that process, hopefully, of being able to leverage these tools so that we can formulate sometimes complex queries and use these tools that are now increasingly available to us. I think this is the road ahead in terms of AI for sure. Yeah.
Super exciting. I have a question from an anonymous attendee. They say sometimes buyers use aliases. Does the index try to link those to their real names?
Yes, because now we have resources for each individual or for each group or also objects, we're able to better connect, for example, different names that were assigned to or connected to specific groups or people and link them to the original source document where these names come from. So we have what we traditionally have been calling the authoritative record for a particular person, for example. But when you go to the list of names, we're able to now connect all references to that person, irrespective of how they were called, but and keeping the verbatim or the written version of that name, perhaps it's an alias in fact, and connect it to the specific source where it was recorded. So I think that's a great advantage because currently it adds maybe an additional step of first maybe via an alias or maybe via a variant of a title or a name of a person. You first need to get to that person page or result and use that as the way to continue exploring the data set, because these links have already been made through all the references throughout the database. I hope that did not confuse the question.
Okay, I have another question. This is from Francis Lloyd Baines. What does your planned cross-repository work with museums look like? What kind of data sharing linking will you explore / test? I kind of put ours under there. I peppered ours in there.
I think, yeah, I'm very excited to explore what we can do. I think it definitely needs collaborative work, like what Samantha and I are trying to do in terms of looking at our data and seeing what are the points where they connect, what kind of reconciliation has been done. For example, some standard terminology or ULAN or wiki IDs, those are really helpful to enrich our data set. I think we're in the moment where we're exploring the mechanics of that linking, and the next step, I think it's very exciting to see what happens when we bring all this information in one, and what kinds of tools we might need also to be able to use this information. Your question comes at a moment where we're in the midst of really thinking through what that would actually mean. That's, I think, also an answer to that question in terms of digital infrastructure to support that. That would be, I think, the next step, to think about what happens after we link all these, where we will record all these connections. And I think all of that workflow is still a work in progress.
Super exciting, though. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a question from one of our photo archivists, Emily Stein. And she wants to know if there's any plan to integrate more images on the platform for visual learners. It takes several steps, and it's not very intuitive to get to the images with the stock books. Images of the works of art could also be helpful.
Yes. I think the linking to museums might offer some opportunities to work out incorporating some images for those work. However, I think it's only 1% of the objects in the provenance index that have been identified in the museum. This is ongoing research, and many will never be identified as well. But there are also opportunities to link to archives that might have information. An example, I think our test case might be the Knoedler archive, because we do have photographs that the gallery kept of the works, and they kept the stock numbering system, things that help us really disambiguate and perhaps bring some images. I think that's a really interesting future project, to bring images to the provenance index. And I think the ways that the source documents have been either made digitally available and the way they are being linked currently, there's, I think, opportunities to think how to help users get to that much quicker in the way that we think through how to present search results, or bring more information in when you're looking, for example, at a specific event. If perhaps think about ways to make available the link to the digital content much sooner, instead of being able to right now we're respecting the fact that some things are scanned at the catalog or book level, or at what is cataloged at the page level, and always each line in the source document is really the source for the information. However, the digital content is the bigger piece, either the page or the full catalog. So trying to figure out, I think, how to make that easier. Some repositories scan pages of catalogs, auction catalogs, some the full catalogs. So we're trying to come up to a more consistent, I think, way to present that.
I see that a lot of people thanked you for answering their questions in the chat, and Francis thanks you in the question. So I'm just going to answer that. somebody said maybe a reverse image search would be wonderful someday. It's more of a comment.
Absolutely.
Does the Getty and our other institutes such as the RKD link their databases to the Getty Provenance Index? That's another question.
Well, in this new platform, I think we do have the structure, the abilities to do so. So we haven't done that yet, but the Getty vocabularies does link to vocabularies produced by the RKD. So I think this is a moment to look at that, what that ecosystem of databases that can link, what would look like, and how we would actually execute that.
I know that's one of the things, the data that we're working with is the archives directory for the history of collecting. So that would be linking those collectors to the GPI, fingers crossed. I have an anonymous attendee who has a technical question, actually. In the search interface, there are buttons plus statement, edit or delete buttons that look like they can be clicked, but that does nothing when they click them now. Why
Yes. Yes, thank you. This is a bug in the system, and we reported that to the Arches developers. They are managing the platform. There's a system. There are several projects, cultural heritage projects using Arches. So there is also a shared forum to escalate some of these bugs. So we follow that process as well. And I think, in fact, we sent that earlier this week, because they shouldn't be appearing to users. It should be something for when you log in, then you have these editorial capabilities. And this can be very confusing to have seen that. Thank you for spotting that. And I think it should be resolved in the next, if not already, in the next couple of days.
There's always a process when you launch a new platform.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like the questions are slowing down, so we should be able to end a little early. There's a lot of love in the chat. Thanking you so much for today. And before I give Sandra my big thank you goodbye and thank everybody for joining us today, I just wanted to take a moment and let everybody know about another program we have on October 29th called Joy Goddess, Lilia Walker and the Harlem Renaissance, which will be a conversation between the author Lilia Bundles and her namesake, obviously the book, and Joy Bivens, the director of the Schomburg Center for Research for Black Culture. So we're super excited about that. And again, thank you so much, Sandra, for this has been a pleasure, and I can't wait to dig in and play around a little bit and work on the data with you. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much, and hope you enjoyed your lunchtime program.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Samantha.
Bye.